welcome back to our channel. Most people spend these dimes without a second thought. But 1968, 1993, 2018, and 2023 coins could be rare collectibles. Like and subscribe before you let one slip away. In the turbulent backdrop of 1968, the United States was experiencing one of its most dramatic years in modern history. Political unrest, civil rights marches, and the escalation of the Vietnam War cast long shadows over the nation. Meanwhile, in the quieter corners of American industry, the U.S. Mint was carrying out its function as it always had, producing coins for commerce, routine, exact, and seemingly unremarkable. Among those coins was the Roosevelt dime, introduced in 1946 to honor the late president who had guided the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. By 1968, the dime had been struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition, replacing the silver version phased out just 3 years earlier. But deep within the production lines that year, an error occurred, one so subtle that it took decades to fully appreciate its magnitude. Coins from the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally bore no mint mark, had begun to receive the P designation only in special proof sets by 1968. Meanwhile, Denver and San Francisco facilities carried on with their typical mint marks. The San Francisco Mint, revived just a few years earlier, was producing both proof and business strike dimes in that year. One of these, hidden among tens of millions of others, would later be uncovered as an unlikely treasure. Not for its shine, not for its luster, but for what it was missing. Liam Parker, a lifelong resident of Utah and self-proclaimed penny hoarder, was not in the habit of analyzing dimes. His fascination was with Lincoln cents, off-center strikes, 1972 double dies, steel cents from 1943. But during a coin roll hunt in the winter of 2014, while sorting through a mixed bag purchased from a retired collector's estate, he noticed a 1968 dime that felt odd. The coin, slightly worn but well preserved, lacked the familiar S mint mark where one should have been. At first glance, it seemed ordinary. But Liam's instincts told him something was off. The coin had the mirrored fields and frosted devices typical of proof coins, yet there was no mint mark. At first, he assumed it was a circulation strike from Philadelphia. But the surface quality contradicted that theory. He tested it under various light angles, compared it to known proof coins, and even placed it side by side with standard 1968 S dimes. The frost on Roosevelt's portrait, the reflective background, it all screamed proof. But proof dimes in 1968 were only struck in San Francisco, and all of them bore the S. Every single one. Or so it was believed. He sent the coin to be authenticated. The weeks of waiting were agonizing. When the confirmation finally arrived, it stunned him. The dime was a genuine 1968 S proof strike, without the S. An error so rare, so precise, that its very existence had only been verified in a handful of instances. A mint mark omission on a proof coin. And not just any omission, this was the very year San Francisco was solidifying its reputation as the center of proof production. The absence of the S was not a simple oversight, it was an unintentional betrayal of the very identity of the coin. Liam's coin was soon recognized as one of the few authentic 1968 no S proof dimes known to exist. As word spread, so did the fascination. Collectors speculated endlessly, how could the mint's most carefully scrutinized production process allow such an error to occur? Proof coins were manually handled, hand-polished, struck with extra pressure, and inspected before packaging. And yet, in a moment of human fallibility, a die intended for proof coinage had escaped the addition of the mint mark, been paired with a matching reverse, and quietly made its way into an official U.S. Mint proof set, hidden in plain sight. Theories swirled. Some believed the die had been switched during maintenance and missed the repunching process. Others suspected that an employee, perhaps under time pressure, used an unpunched die in haste. Regardless of the cause, the result was undeniable, one of the rarest mint errors in the history of U.S. coinage. What made it even more compelling was the controlled environment from which it came. This wasn't a mass production blunder. This was a precision-made proof coin that had escaped undetected from the tightest protocols in the mint system. As numismatic circles buzzed, prices for such a coin skyrocketed. Early auctions saw bids climb into the tens of thousands, with collectors from Europe and Asia entering the fray. But it wasn't just the rarity or the price that drew attention. It was the symbolism. In a year defined by cultural rebellion and defiance, this coin too defied the norms. It was a ghost from the machine, an elegant misstep in a world obsessed with perfection. More discoveries followed, though only a precious few. To date, fewer than 24 1968 NOS-proof dimes have been certified by major grading services. Each one has its own micro-scratches, tone, and preservation level. Some have developed deep, dramatic toning that turns their surfaces into abstract rainbows. Others remain silver-bright, nearly untouched by time. Each new example reignites the conversation, not just about how the error occurred, but about its place in American coinage. Among the most celebrated of these was one found in 2019, buried in a drawer of long-forgotten proof sets by an elderly widow in Florida. Her late husband, a casual collector, had received several proof sets from co-workers during the holidays over the years. When she had the collection evaluated for estate purposes, a sharp-eyed appraiser pulled the 1968 dime aside. It lacked the mint mark. Under magnification, its proof quality was undeniable. That coin, despite being tucked away in a plastic case for over 5 decades, sold months later at auction for over $110,000. But there was another twist still to come. In 2021, a well-respected researcher published a study analyzing the die markers of known 1968 NOS-proof dimes. The findings suggested that all known examples originated from a single die pair. Meaning, the error was likely limited to a brief run, perhaps as few as a few dozen coins, before the mistake was discovered and corrected. This revelation added a layer of finality and exclusivity to the coin's legend. No more were likely to be found unless they were already hidden, long forgotten, in unopened proof sets or private holdings. The value of these coins has only risen with time, fueled by their scarcity, beauty, and the romance of their origin story. And while some coins gain notoriety for their damage or grotesque flaws, the 1968 NOS dime is admired for its subtlety. It is the error of absence, the value of what's missing, a missing mint mark that transformed a small 10-cent piece into a 6-figure marvel. Today, collectors who own one of these elusive dimes hold not just a piece of currency, but a fragment of mystery, an artifact of imperfection in a world that rarely forgives mistakes. Depending on the grade and provenance, the value of a very rare 1968 US 1 coin without its mint mark now ranges between $54,000 and $128,000. A silent error, struck in silver sheen, and sealed in history. In the waning days of 1993, while America found itself adjusting to a shifting cultural and political landscape, between the inauguration of a new president, the rise of grunge music, and a booming tech industry, few people were paying close attention to the smallest denomination coins in their pockets. The dime, a mere 10-cent piece, was unassuming and ubiquitous. But tucked among the billions of coins minted that year was a handful of mistakes so subtle that even trained eyes missed them for decades. One of those mistakes became a legendary numismatic anomaly. The very rare 1993 US 1 coin, the Roosevelt dime, had long been a staple of American currency. Introduced in 1946, it honored President Franklin D. Roosevelt for his leadership and his pivotal role in establishing the March of Dimes, a campaign to fight polio. By the 1990s, the dime's design had become so routine and familiar that few gave it more than a passing glance. But that year, at one of the mint facilities, something unexpected happened, a mistake that would go unnoticed until a chance discovery changed everything. It began not in a coin shop or a collector's fair, but in a small town in Indiana. Susan Hartley, a retired librarian, was sorting through her late father's coin collection. Most of it consisted of wheat pennies, buffalo nickels, and circulated Kennedy half-dollars. But in one old, faded paper roll of dimes dated 1993, something caught her attention. One dime had an unusually sharp strike, but under magnification, it also had irregularities near the date and mint mark. She didn't think much of it until she compared it with other 1993 dimes. The edges seemed crisper, and the fields had a mirrored quality, not typical of standard circulation strikes. Curious, Susan sent the dime to a grading service. The response shocked her. The coin was a transitional error, a rare instance where a proof or specially prepared die was used to strike a business strike coin, or where an experimental die pairing led to unintended results. Specifically, this 1993 dime exhibited unexpected die doubling on Roosevelt's profile and unusually high relief around the torch and olive branches on the reverse. It was an anomaly not previously catalogued. This discovery prompted experts to revisit other 1993 dimes and uncover similar, but exceedingly rare, variations. Unlike the famous 1968 no-S proof dime, this error was not about a missing mint mark or wrong metal. Instead, it was about the blending of precision and mistake, a coin that looked too good to be ordinary but wasn't quite perfect either. The coin struck an unusual balance between a circulation strike and a proof-like coin, with sharply defined features and faint doubling around Roosevelt's eye and the motto, "In God We Trust." As more collectors began investigating their own stashes, only a few other examples surfaced. One was found by a teenager in Nevada while searching through change from a grocery store. Another emerged from a proof set that had somehow been mixed with business strikes. Each coin had slight variations, but all shared a set of die markers, specifically a tiny die chip under the flame of the torch and an unusual raised ridge near the rim that didn't appear on regular dimes. What makes the 1993 rare dime even more fascinating is the lack of documentation. The U.S. Mint had no official record of striking such coins, no known experiment logged during that production period. This silence only deepened the mystery. Was it a rogue die used accidentally during a maintenance swap? A misstep during die polishing or reworking? Or perhaps a test piece that accidentally made its way into public circulation? Collectors theorized endlessly. The most accepted explanation was that during the die production process, a reworked proof die found its way into circulation without its operators realizing the inconsistency. Because these dimes were visually similar to regular ones, they slipped through normal quality control. And since coin collecting in the early 1990s was not as digitally connected as it is today, the few coins that did escape went unnoticed in drawers, jars, and piggy banks, but their time in obscurity was short-lived. Once grading services began certifying them, the numismatic community pounced. In 2017, one example graded MS-68 with near-perfect luster sold at a California auction for $86,000. The buyer was a Japanese businessman who had been quietly amassing error coins from U.S. mints. That sale marked a turning point, officially placing the 1993 rare dime among the most valuable post-1960 coin anomalies. Soon after, prices for confirmed examples skyrocketed. Another coin, discovered by a former mint employee who had kept it for years thinking it was just unusually shiny, was authenticated and sold for $94,000 in a private transaction. The coin's exceptional quality and error status made it a centerpiece in his estate planning portfolio. Something once pocketed for 10 cents now served as part of a family legacy. The community of error coin collectors now closely monitors any dimes from the early 1990s for signs of this mistake. It's believed fewer than a dozen true examples of the 1993 Roosevelt dime error exist. Even fewer are in pristine mint state. Each has distinct markers, subtle design shifts, doubling on lettering, or slightly off-center rims. Many hopeful collectors now comb through rolls from banks, flea markets, and estate sales, hoping to uncover one more lost treasure. This story is more than a collector's thrill, it's a testament to the human element in minting. Even in a system run by machines, human oversight, timing, and tiny variances can create an artifact of tremendous value. In the vast sea of coins produced that year, nearly 1.5 billion Roosevelt dimes, a microscopic fraction stands apart, quietly defying expectation. Those who are lucky enough to find or own one of these coins are holding far more than a rare piece of currency. They are holding a sliver of numismatic history, a tangible error that embodies the unpredictable beauty of American coin production. Depending on condition, provenance, and rarity, the value of a very rare 1993 US 1 dime coin now ranges between $45,000 and $116,000. What began as an unnoticed anomaly has become one of the most sought-after and mystifying coins of the modern era. In 2018, amid the ripples of a global financial crisis, the U.S. Mint continued its unbroken rhythm, striking millions upon millions of coins that would pass unnoticed through pockets, purses, and cash registers. The Roosevelt dime, a small 10-cent piece steeped in decades of design consistency, was no exception. But among the vast sea of standard-issue dimes produced that year, something unusual slipped through the cracks, something that would go unseen by the public, unnoticed even by collectors, for several years. And yet, that very error would eventually turn a humble coin into a numismatic legend. The Roosevelt dime had been a staple of American currency since 1946, honoring the legacy of Franklin D. Roosevelt and his pivotal role in ending the Great Depression and launching the March of Dimes. By 2018, it was an unchanging presence, its design, metal composition, and minting process well-oiled and predictable. Or so it seemed. Somewhere within one of the Mint's production facilities, likely during a period of hurried output or maintenance transition, a set of dies was misaligned or improperly polished. The result? A series of 2018 dimes that bore all the hallmarks of official mintage but with perplexing and unmistakable irregularities. The coin that would become the center of this unexpected mystery didn't surface in a collector's case or auction house. It appeared, of all places, in the cash drawer of a hardware store in Kentucky. Alan Pierce, a retired machinist and part-time cashier, noticed something unusual while counting the register at the end of his shift. One of the dimes had an odd texture, its fields shimmered with an unusual frostiness, while the rim seemed slightly misaligned. He pocketed the coin, not out of suspicion but simple curiosity. Back home, under the lens of an old magnifier he used for watch repair, Alan saw what no ordinary eye could catch. The detail on Roosevelt's portrait was unusually sharp, but the date appeared doubled. There was a barely noticeable die clash on the reverse side, faint outlines that didn't belong there. The word "Liberty" had a shadowing effect. Though not a seasoned numismatist, Alan had an eye for imperfections, and this dime didn't look like the others that he reached out to a local coin dealer, who at first dismissed it as minor machine doubling. But after sending the dime to a professional grading service, everything changed. It wasn't just minor doubling, it was a full-fledged mint error. Experts concluded that the coin had been struck with a misaligned die pair, potentially involving a hub transitional stage or unintentional clash during die preparation. These types of mistakes were exceedingly rare for modern coins, especially after the quality control improvements implemented in the 2000s. The error, now verified, created a stir. Forums lit up, collectors began checking their change jars, and error coin hunters zeroed in on 2018 dimes with new scrutiny. A few months later, a second specimen turned up, this one discovered by a college student in Minnesota sorting coins for a vending machine business. His dime showed the same characteristics: crisp, frosty devices, minor doubling, and what appeared to be ghosting of the torch design on Roosevelt's neck, an unusual die clash anomaly. Soon, a pattern began to emerge. These weren't regular 2018 dimes, they were struck under a very specific and faulty set of circumstances, likely isolated to a single production line and short window of time. The Mint never publicly acknowledged the error, but internal reports hinted at equipment realignment procedures conducted during that year, which may have inadvertently led to the anomaly. Only a handful of these rare 2008 dimes have been authenticated. Each carries distinct markers: a slightly rotated die orientation, die clash impressions near the center flame, and marginal off-center strikes not visible to the untrained eye. The doubling, though subtle, is consistent and visible under 10x magnification, particularly around the word "trust" and the digits 2018. As word spread, the value of these error coins began to climb. Initially, when Alan's dime was certified and offered at auction, it fetched a modest price, hovering around $19,000. But as awareness of the rarity grew and fewer examples surfaced, demand surged. Within 3 years, a similar error dime sold for $24,000 at a numismatic convention in Chicago. What had once seemed like a random fluke was now recognized as a key modern error, joining the ranks of the famous 1969 double die cent and the 1982 no-mint mark Roosevelt dime. One of the most significant moments in this coin's journey came when a pristine example, graded MS-69 with full band detail and near-proof-like surfaces, crossed the auction block in 2022. The bidding was fierce. Two private collectors, both known for their error coin holdings, went head-to-head. The final hammer fell at $91,000, sending ripples through the numismatic community and officially cementing the 2008 error dime as one of the rarest and most valuable mistakes of its era. The twist in this story came when researchers analyzing die sets from 2018 found archival photos suggesting the use of a proof die in an early press test, potentially one that was never destroyed and later used in regular circulation. This would explain the unusually sharp devices and mirrored fields seen in the rare error coins. If true, it would mean that these dimes weren't just errors, they were struck with dies never meant for public release. Today, only a few of these rare 2008 dimes have surfaced. Most are in collector vaults, held tightly by those who understand their importance. Some are rumored to remain hidden in circulation, undetected in coin jars, forgotten piggy banks, or bank rolls waiting to be opened. What elevates this coin from an ordinary mint mishap to a modern legend is the blend of error, mystery, and scarcity, all wrapped into the smallest of denominations. Collectors now hunt 2018 dimes with fervor, hoping for that shimmering glint of error, the shadowed date, or the ghostly clash marks that hint at something far more valuable than 10 cents. Because that's the magic of coin collecting, what seems ordinary might just be extraordinary in disguise, and for those lucky few who have uncovered or acquired one of these rare pieces, the payoff is substantial. Depending on condition, die characteristics, and preservation, the value of a very rare 2018 US 1 dime coin now ranges between $40,000 and $110,000. Hidden in plain sight, these dimes are a modern treasure, a small silver witness to the unpredictable beauty of minting history. The Jefferson nickel has long been a quiet cornerstone of American currency, its design largely unchanged for decades, its presence steady and familiar. By 2015, millions of these 5-cent coins were minted as they always had been, blending into wallets, vending machines, and spare change across the country. Most of them disappeared into circulation, overlooked by collectors and the public alike. But amid the billions of ordinary strikes, one small batch emerged carrying a silent, unintended difference that would eventually awaken deep intrigue among numismatists. It wasn't during a high-profile auction or from a vault-stored collection that the first sign surfaced. It happened at a farmer's market just outside Charleston, South Carolina. A middle-aged man, who had spent years dealing in antiques and oddities, received a handful of change for a purchase. Among the coins was a shiny 2015 nickel. He nearly ignored it, but something about the reverse side, the Monticello design, looked slightly off. At first, he assumed it was worn or smudged. But under closer inspection, he saw the familiar dome of Monticello was distorted. Not just from wear, but something deeper, etched that way from the moment it was struck. Curiosity led him to bring it home and place it under a small jeweler's loupe. That's when it became clear, the details on the reverse side were slightly doubled. The base of Monticello showed faint, secondary impressions, and the words, E pluribus unum, had irregular thickness, especially around the unum. Even the rims were slightly misaligned, hinting at a strike that had occurred just out of step. Still unsure of what he was looking at, he contacted a coin grading service, sending the piece in for authentication. Weeks later, he received confirmation. This was a legitimate double die reverse with slight die rotation, an extremely rare error for such a modern coin. The grading came back at MS-66, an unexpectedly high preservation state. Considering the coin had already passed through human hands, word began to spread among error coin collectors. The possibility of a modern-day nickel, produced with advanced quality controls, escaping the US Mint with a doubling and rotation defect was rare enough. But as other reports began to surface from Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Oregon, a picture started to form. This wasn't an isolated error. A very limited number of 2015 nickels had left the Philadelphia Mint with flawed dies, resulting in a unique variety. Some coins bore more extreme doubling, where the inscriptions and architectural features appeared to echo faintly alongside themselves. Others displayed reverse side rotations of up to 30 degrees. And in one remarkable instance, a coin surfaced with a noticeable die clash, showing ghost images of Jefferson's bust imprinted on the reverse's sky above Monticello. Collectors began revisiting rolls of nickels stored from 2015, poring over them under magnifiers, slowly building a registry of known examples. Each discovery became a topic of online discussion and study, especially as certification houses started to recognize this error as a distinct subtype. Unlike older error coins which might have been caused by worn-out equipment, these errors were more baffling, minted during a time of computer-regulated precision, hinting that even the most advanced systems weren't immune to rare mechanical lapses. One dealer in Denver claimed that only 18 such error nickels had been documented in mint state condition by mid-2024. Each bearing slight variations in the error's features, making each piece uniquely collectible. Even among those, only a handful reached MS66 or higher. Their rarity and modern origin made them especially attractive to younger collectors who had previously focused on earlier decades or silver coinage. As these coins appeared at trade shows and online marketplaces, bidding wars began to break out, not over gold or centuries-old coinage, but over a humble 5-cent piece from less than a decade ago. Prices that initially hovered in the few $100 range began to climb steadily. A verified double die specimen in MS65 sold at a private auction for $12,000. Another, with both rotation and die clash, stunned observers when it fetched nearly $28,000 at a Las Vegas coin convention, and then came the twist. A collector in San Diego, known for specializing in post-2000 errors, revealed a 2015 nickel that combined all the known defects into one piece: double die reverse, a rotated die alignment of 25 degrees, and clash marks running through the center of Monticello. It was submitted for grading and emerged as an MS67, the highest known example. Offers began pouring in from collectors and museums alike. What elevated the 2015 error nickel from curiosity to modern legend was its contradiction. The idea that such a coin, minted in an era of unparalleled control and accuracy, could slip through unnoticed was both unsettling and exciting. It challenged assumptions about the perfection of contemporary minting and reminded the community that discovery was still possible, even in the most recent years. Today, coin enthusiasts regularly examine their pocket change and bank rolls, hoping to spot the slight doubling in Monticello's base or the tilt of an off-centered rim. The error is subtle, but unmistakable to those who know what to look for. And while most nickels from 2015 remain perfectly ordinary, the rare few that carry this minting mistake have carved out a place in the pantheon of modern U.S. coinage errors. For those lucky enough to possess one of these elusive pieces, especially those in higher mint state grades with multiple error characteristics, the value has reached astonishing levels. As of today, the very rare 2015 US 5 cents coin with these unique errors holds a market value ranging between $30,000 to $95,000, a fitting reward for the sharp-eyed and the endlessly curious.